gum out, like my mom always says, got my gum in, so. All right. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our semi-annual public safety briefing. This is a time where we get together twice a year to share our public safety stats with the community, with you all as the media, get alongside our public safety partners from the county to talk about how we're working together with them to keep this community safe. We are a little over midway, of course, through 2025, and just as a reminder, we always like to share this slide here that you see in front of you, just kind of to set the table on where we ended last year with kind of the crime picture in our community. So this is kind of the baseline for the talking points of what you'll hear from today. So this is where we ended 2024 with both violent crime and property crime per capita in our community. We don't update this mid-year because there's a lot of nuances in terms of what gets charged, what doesn't get charged. We don't have our population numbers yet for this year, so we don't have those per capita numbers for this year. But the next time we do this briefing, about 5-6 months from now, we will have the 2025 numbers. But as a reminder, you can see that 37.02 property crimes per 1,000 residents. That was the lowest that it's been since pre-COVID in 2019. And same with those violent crime per capita numbers, that 5.69. That was also the lowest that it had been since 2019. So last year, we felt really good about where we ended our year in terms of the public safety efforts in our community and in terms of safety overall in the city of Sioux Falls. One big win that we've had so far this year is we have really been doubling and tripling down on the number of saturation patrols we've been doing in this community in terms of trying to crack down on the exhibition driving, the speeding, which continues to be one of the biggest complaints we're hearing about. When you think of crime, you often think of, things like assaults and homicides and things like that. But the thing that we hear a ton about is this. And so in partnership with the Highway Patrol and some of our other, county and state agencies, you can see that the number of citations that we've issued as a result of these saturation patrols has almost doubled from 2024 year to date to where we're at in 2025. So that's a big win for this community in terms of addressing one of the huge issues that we've seen in the city of Sioux Falls with that exhibition driving, a lot of the noise complaints, people saying, I can't keep my windows open at night because of the meatheads that are flying down Veterans Parkway and so forth. So this has been a big win in the community. One thing I also want to hit on too, while not crime, of course, I just got done doing a project called the 437 Project where we run across the state to raise funds, raise awareness for those that have been impacted by suicide, those experiencing suicidal ideations. And we always like to talk about the impact of suicide in our community when we do this briefing. And so through August of this year, that's where we stand with our suicide numbers in our community. So an uptick over last year, really fairly steady with where we've been in the past, but that's 23 lives that have been lost in our community to suicide, and there's a whole lot of people, family members, loved ones that are impacted by that. So that's a number that we always like to watch. Every one of those is one too many, and so we continue to just kind of point out all the resources available to the community, things like 988 and the Helpline Center, and all the things in the community that people can utilize to know the signs, know the symptoms, to check on family and friends to make sure that number stays as low as possible every year. So we're going to dive into the actual statistics around the different crime numbers, and for that I'm going to turn it over to Chief John Thum. So, Chief.
All right. Chief John Thum, thank you for coming today for this briefing. We go over numbers and we go over different things, and I think it's important that we provide updates for the public. It used to be an annual thing, and we kind of, with Mayor TenHaken, decided it should be biannual because this is a thing people talk about, they want to know about, and we want to give information and, again, give it in a way that we can provide some context as well. So if you look at this as calls for service, what you'll see is stability in our calls for service. We typically run about 130,000 calls for service per year, so keep in mind this is January from August year to year. But we look at this trend, and we've been doing different things like online reporting, different ways where we can be more efficient with our officers to make them available for more emergency calls as opposed to non-emergency calls. As the city continues to grow, I think one of the things we look at the numbers per capita and different things there is we've essentially, in this time frame we're talking about, added an Aberdeen to our city, right? The third largest city within South Dakota, and that's what we've added. Yet we still maintain stability, but we have to find other efficiencies as well, especially as our city grows. So look for that as we try to explore different ways to be more efficient and make sure that we're available for high priority incidents with some of these calls for service. Next is we get into homicides, and this is the one that grabs everybody's attention because, again, they're huge, impactful events, and this is our 5-year trend. We sent out a press release yesterday about a homicide that took place yesterday, and we're not ready to speak about that yet, but this afternoon we'll be able to get into some more detail with this case. If you look at that, between 130,000 calls for service a year, I believe last year we ended on 16, which is why we get the year-end numbers when we look year to year, because we're entering into the fourth quarter of the year, if you look at it that way. So what trends we'll see, what other numbers we'll see. But one thing remains true with homicides, it grabs public attention. But here's what I can tell you. It's people who know each other, are known associates of each other, typically are consuming alcohol together, or there's some other issue where people know each other. The random issues or random homicides is not something that we're seeing a trend that's alarming. We can look at every single one of these cases, look at the facts, look at the people involved, and say, yeah. And I think sometimes we get pressed on these questions about is there any public safety danger when they're asked about these incidents, and that's where we can look and say, yeah, here's how these have played out. So we'll continue to look at these and obviously work with our partners at the state's attorney's office for prosecuting these cases. But again, like I said, we went from it ebbs and flows, year to year changes, and we'll see where next year brings us on that. Here's a really positive trend. If we look at assaults, we saw from 2020 on kind of a steady tick up, but now we're seeing that trend reverse. We're seeing numbers go down. I think aggravated assault domestics in particular is something that we've highlighted, and just aggravated and domestic as a whole, seeing close to a 31% decrease in this period of last year. Not 31, 14%. So again, seeing these positive trends move in this direction, we're constantly hearing about, okay, well, Sioux Falls is this or Sioux Falls is that, driven off public, or I should say perception. But we do have to lean into facts. We can't let perception dictate or glorification of some of these ideas dictate what the reality is. So here's what the reality is showing us, and we're seeing positive trends there. And again, that comes with collaboration with our partners, collaboration with prosecution, but collaboration with nonprofits. Nonprofits help people break the silence or the cycle of domestic violence. I think we're seeing effective nonprofit work within our community. They're supporting victims and getting them to the point where they can make that brave stance to get out of some bad relationships. Next one is robberies. Again, stable. We see these numbers and these trends is pretty flat. Sioux Falls used to be known for its casino robberies, right? And that's what drove some of those numbers back in the day. We're not seeing those trends. These are a lot of person-to-person interactions. There are some of these robberies and some that involve businesses, but we haven't seen a spike in some of the gas station or casino robberies that we've seen in the past in Sioux Falls. This is maybe my favorite slide to talk about, stolen vehicles. Can't wait for the end of the year numbers. From 23 to 24, I think we saw close to a 15% reduction in stolen vehicles. Now keep in mind, this is January to September 15th, these numbers. The trend from 2023 is dramatic. And how does this happen? Happens with public education, repeat messaging from either ad campaigns, from Pocket and Lock It, from our press briefings. We're continually saying this, to identifying also the people who are stealing vehicles and making sure they're held accountable. We'll get to that later in another slide, but again, this collaborative effort that we've partaken in as a community is showing absolute results. But I'll tell you this, every weekend, when I look at the reports for stolen vehicles, they're down. But what's the continuing trend? Unlocked, keys left in them, right? So there's still more work we can do to make sure we take care of this. So again, we kind of keep our foot on the gas a little bit and make sure that we're continuing the messaging, get tired of us saying it again and again, but again, we're seeing great trends in stolen vehicles. So again, we brought you into our real-time information center, and we're just getting this rolling in a built-out sense, and so far it has been remarkable the impact it has had. And this is what I was kind of hitting to a little bit with stolen vehicles, In the past, a lot of times our stolen vehicles were recovered unoccupied. With our information in our real-time information center, we're able to make arrests of people inside stolen vehicles. We're identifying who's doing it, we're putting them and getting them within the court system, and that has a tangible benefit. Again, we've recovered over 23 stolen vehicles using this technology, freed up using our camera network and systems, 113 calls, so officers didn't have to go because we could use technology to say, yep, that call's not an issue or that's taken care of. And we're just getting this program to get more momentum, find staffing. It's kind of been staffed at a part-time basis as we can, but as we have people who are available or injured, we put them into this position or role. And even this morning, we helped it use and solve the hit and run with the cameras and technologies. So it's emerging. It's going to help us hold people accountable, but also, again, keep people to a safer Sioux Falls. Drugs seized. I'm just going to go over this briefly, but you can kind of see that's marijuana and methamphetamine. We talk about tons of other drugs. Meth is always here. I think fentanyl gets a lot of attention. Other things get a lot of attention, but meth is pretty steady and consistent in our part of the world. Here's what's not, though, from a seizure standpoint. On the next slide, we'll see that some of our fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine is way down. Now, it's not for lack of effort, but we do see a disruption to supply that's therefore translates to a different kind of drug climate. Back to my previous statement, meth has always been there. We can probably dig deep into this as it goes. There's multiple contributing factors, but again, we're seeing a decrease within some of these drugs. I think part of it too is demand down, is public education about fentanyl, doing some really positive things to say, okay, people aren't seeking it like they were. It's not the drug that it was highly sought after. We'll always have people who are seeking drugs. But again, this isn't encouraging, and I think we're also seeing the combination of education, law enforcement efforts, and collaboration to potentially see a disruption in this trend. This is incredibly positive. We haven't had the big seizures that we've had in previous years. Going to overdoses, we see this play out here a little bit too. Again, any overdose is too many, but look at the first overdose page. That's just ones we've responded to. We've seen a downward trend in overdose calls that we've responded to January through August. Again, deaths, we've seen them decrease. There's still too many, but again, we're pretty stable there. And just Narcan, we even talked about if we even report how often our officers use Narcan anymore. When we started reporting this, it was kind of special and unique that we were carrying it and deploying it. Now it's so widely spread and available. We'll obviously still continue to carry it as part of the whole package. But again, our Narcan deployments are way down, and I think there's multi-factors there, but again, worth noting. And then I believe that concludes some of our stuff. We'll give you more slides later with some more numbers that's part of your package and obviously be available for questions. But now, Minnehaha County State's Attorney Daniel Hagar has some points.
Good morning. Always fun to stand up and talk with law enforcement. As we look at the numbers, again, you can always look and see things that are encouraging, things that are disencouraging. But when you see those numbers, remember that, again, there are always victims attached to those crimes. So as you see a number trending downward, there are still individuals who are being affected by that, families. But what I get encouraged by is just the good work that law enforcement's doing. Right, you're seeing those arrests that they're making, you're seeing the work every day and the cases that they're bringing to my office. So as my office is working to obtain justice, right, through holding offenders accountable, helping keep our communities safer, we're building off of that foundation that law enforcement has brought to us. So that is something to always be encouraged by as you live in this community. Some of the things that I wanted to talk about as we approach October with Domestic Violence Awareness Month are just two of the partnerships that the Minnehaha County State's Attorney's Office is working on. Some are currently up and running, some are going to start later this fall. But the first one of those is the Coordinated Community Response Team. That's a program and a group now that's meeting, lawyers from my office, Sheriff's Office, Sioux Falls Police Department, other stakeholders in the community. We have representatives from local universities, advocates, looking to see how we can best serve those victims of domestic violence, serve their families, their children, just making sure that we're sharing information, sharing strategy, and coordinating those efforts. Those meetings have been going on for about 6 months now. Those are a good thing, right? It's great when your local government and advocates and people who care about people in your community are sharing that information, sharing that strategy, and looking for ways to continue to see those domestic violence numbers go down. So that's a big win. We also have a statewide lethality review team that we're working to set up. Again, we're working with our local sheriff, our local police, state's attorneys. We're working with our partners in Rapid City and Pennington County. We're going to get together, again, those are going to start in the fall, share some of those cases with individuals who are at the highest risk for homicide coming out of domestic violence. And look and say, okay, from a law enforcement perspective, what are trends that we can see? What are areas where we can serve those individuals better and hopefully stop some of that cycle where the high-risk domestic violence is ending up in homicide? So, again, I'm excited about those. It represents a need, unfortunately, because of crime being committed in our community. But that is the life of law enforcement and prosecutors. There's always more crime and more work to be done, but I'm proud of, again, the work that law enforcement's doing. Nothing highlights that more than, I guess, yesterday. My office had a 4-day jury trial that ultimately ended up in a conviction in State v. Kevin Bass. That was a rape second, so a violent rape. It was a burglary case. The jury ultimately convicted that. You can go, there's public record now what happened in that trial. You saw previous videos of domestic violence against the same victim. You saw videos of horrific acts that were happening in our community. And law enforcement worked hard on that case. Prosecutors in my office, the victim witness assistants, they got a conviction at trial, so I'm really proud of them. But at the same time, we also have another homicide that happens in our community. So again, law enforcement is having that moment where justice was obtained and immediately starting to work on another case. And so proud of them, proud of the work that they're doing. Just those troops on the ground, they're doing a phenomenal job. And so as we move into October, domestic violence, and continue forward, again, proud of the progress on numbers, but there's a lot of work, but we've got good law enforcement here. Thank you. And let me introduce Sheriff Mike Milstead.
Thanks, State Attorney Hager. Mike Milstead, Sheriff of Minnehaha County. I just thought it would be appropriate, since it's a public safety briefing, to talk a little bit about a big impact on public safety, and that is the fact that Senate Bill 2 passed the special session of the legislature last week, and they are moving forward with building a replacement for the dungeon-like overcrowded hill, and also to deal with the overcrowding situation throughout the penitentiary system. I was on the Prison Reset Committee, and we voted unanimously, as you know, to move forward with Senate Bill 2. I testified as a strong supporter of Senate Bill 2 in Pierre during the special session. At the same time, all the chiefs, sheriffs, and state's attorneys through their associations came out in support of Senate Bill 2. We were urging its passage because of the impact that it would have on public safety, the positive impact that it would have on officer safety, and the positive impact that it would have on the individuals who are incarcerated there by providing them with appropriate housing conditions, conditions of confinement, and also going forward with Governor Roden's plan to have a rehabilitation task force to address that issue. It's interesting that just today we will be sending a letter through our 3 associations, the South Dakota Sheriff's Association, the South Dakota Police Chiefs Association, and the South Dakota State's Attorney Association, to all of the legislators who voted yes on Senate Bill 2. In addition, we'll be sending the same letter to Governor Roden. I just want to highlight a couple of the comments in the letter. Your support for Senate Bill 2 shows that when public safety is on the line, you stand committed to your support of law enforcement and prosecutors. Your commitment to ensuring our state penitentiary facilities are safe and not overcrowded reflects your dedication to public safety and the well-being of both inmates and staff. Your decision demonstrates a thoughtful approach to addressing the needs of our state's penitentiary system while balancing fiscal responsibility with the demands of public safety. We deeply appreciate your leadership and support in making South Dakota safer and a stronger state for all. Not included in the letter, though, I want to personally thank Mayor TenHaken for his role in this. What we learned through a lot of work and a lot of conversations with both the Prison Reset Committee and other legislators and government officials is we were going to either end up with a prison in Sioux Falls or we weren't going to get one. And the conditions would continue to be dismal, to say the least. And so the mayor was one who stood up and said, look, we're going to have to take it for the state. And so we accepted bringing the prison here. That's what we went forward with. He could have resisted. There were other government officials in other cities that all said, not here. You know, they originally said, yeah, we'd like it in this town or the other, and changed their mind. Our mayor stood firm in saying, this is something that has to happen. And I think that's a way that you don't turn your backs on the men and women that are correctional officers in the state prison, and you move forward to make sure that the people that are housed there are housed, their conditions of confinement are appropriate, because today they are not. So, Mayor, I appreciate your role in that. The chronic repeat offenders continue to plague us. Almost half of my jail population today are people who re-victimized people in our society while they were on probation or parole. That continues to be that revolving door, and so it comes at a great expense. It's interesting that if you look at the state statute, it says that anybody that's on parole is in the custody of the Department of Corrections until their parole date ends, right? So they are currently in the custody of the Department of Corrections throughout their time on parole. Yet when they commit a new crime on the outside, they instantly become the responsibility of the county. And so even though they're on parole and in custody of DOC, the county picks up the bill then. We're picking up the bill on 80 individuals today, parolees who have re-victimized people out in our community. And so that, in my mind, gives even more cause to support Governor Roden's plan for a rehabilitation task force. They'll have a lot of work ahead of them, trying to make sure that they establish better programming in the prison, better reentry services, better case management, fix a broken parole system, and also provide job skills training so when these individuals come out of the prison, which they will, and oftentimes into Sioux Falls, that they have the skills and the training and the necessary connections to do better, to not be repeat offenders, to not be filling the county jail, and not re-victimizing our citizens. Thank you. With that, Jeff Gromer, my Chief Deputy.
Good morning, Jeff Gromer, Chief Deputy for the Sheriff's Office. I will just run you through some of these slides on the jail numbers. We try to keep the format fairly consistent from semi-annual briefing to semi-annual briefing. This slide is one that the warden and I and the jail administration watch fairly closely. We look at this on a monthly basis, kind of gives us a very good trend as to where our population numbers are. You see the biggest blue bar on the bottom of the graph. Those are the Minnehaha County inmates. As the sheriff mentioned, half of those inmates are on some sort of supervision already. The darker blue lines, Lincoln County, you can see that one stays fairly consistent. Gray is the state. Primarily those are parolees that are violated on parole, so they don't have another charge. That number will ebb and flow and fluctuate quite a bit. The yellow bar is the federal inmates. That's really the only one we have a limited amount of control on. And when I say limited, a lot of times we'll be holding inmates for the federal government, and they just simply don't have anywhere else to take them. So we have a limited capacity to fluctuate that number. The very small top part is the other counties, and those are usually short-term stays until they can get them arranged. What this graph really shows us, though, is any trends or peaks, valleys, anything like that. What you can see is we're kind of on a general increase. The last couple of months appear to have stabilized a little bit, so we're very happy about that. Hopefully that trend will continue, and we can continue to push off our expansion into the vacant space of the jail. This is, again, basically repeated information. Size of the jail currently hasn't changed. We have not expanded into the new portion of the jail. With a 603-bed facility, we kind of like to operate at about 513 inmates, gives the staff some flexibility for both classification and generally a peaking. Our numbers tend to go up through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they'll kind of gradually go down a little bit over the week before they spike again. Overall, with the jail population, you're seeing that our severity of charges tending to increase. I think that's kind of evidenced by what State's Attorney was talking about in some of these cases. Also, we've all mentioned it repeatedly. I think you're going to hear it from us on a pretty steady stream that we are continuing to see repeat offenders coming in over and over and over again. It's so many of these folks that are already on supervision, and those cases become a little bit more complicated. They tend to take a little longer, which then pushes up our length of stay a little bit. This is the jail numbers as of the 26th, so on Friday. You can see the bulk of them are obviously our own inmates. What we have seen is some reduction in some of these beds for the Marshal Service and some of them that we're able to offer for other counties. That's a significant impact on the jail's revenue, which is, again, a significant impact on the overall county budget. The programs we're running out of the jail, I think these programs bear repeating every opportunity we get because they are so successful. The pretrial services program has demonstrated a very dramatic impact on the numbers of people that are failing to appear for subsequent court dates. These are folks that are able to safely return to the community on bond, but tend to have a difficult time showing up for court and staying on the correct path. And pretrial has been very successful in keeping them in court, which saves astronomical amounts of time when we're not having to go rearrest people simply to get them back into court. It's time, it's effort, it's jail space. It's really shown itself to be a really successful program. And then kind of the same with the 24/7 and electronic monitoring program. We've been talking about 24/7 enough years now, where I think most people in this room at least are fairly comfortable with what that program does. That program has been a huge success over many, many, many years and does allow us to really return a significant number of people back into the community to be monitored. And it does a very good job of monitoring those folks and ensuring that their behavior is staying within expectations. So, and the electronic monitoring program, obviously that's 28 people that we don't have to house in jail and are able to monitor them, and they can maintain their jobs, their homes, their family situations, but yet at the same time we can keep track of them and their behavior. So all three of those programs are very, very helpful for us controlling our jail population to the extent we can. With that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
All right, well, I want to thank our partners, public safety partners, and kind of close with just saying that this level of interagency collaboration is certainly unique, and it's also, I think, why we have good success in our closure rates with our cases and some of the positive numbers that we see here today, because we just work really well together. I don't know a lot of cities maybe our size that would have a crime briefing like this with all of these agencies all working together in unison like this. So I'm very proud of that collaboration with these partners. So with that, we'd certainly take any questions you'd have for any of the agencies that are here today. Trevor.
So you, looking at that, the drug seizure thing specifically, and you alluded to this a little as well, I imagine it's sort of hard to directly tell exactly what that means. Can you go into, when you and your team are looking in that, how do you, I guess, look at, was this a good year of this compared to just like, were there not drugs coming through? I guess, how do you try to figure out yourself how that's working?
So you'd want to grab a number that's a stat that'd be like, okay, we seized record amounts of drugs. And I think a couple of years ago I said, yep, we seized record amount of fentanyl. Guess what? Record amount of overdose deaths to go along with it. So as we see this trend kind of halfway through the year, we're asking questions and evaluating, okay, is this a significant disruption of supply, right? Which we could say that could be. Well, we'll get deeper into contributing factors as to why that is, whether it's border security, interagency collaboration with the DEA. Like there's a whole different way. Or is our ultimate hope is that our messaging and communication to young people in particular, we've been pretty consistent with fentanyl. You only get one chance and it could kill you, right? Has some of that taking effect? Has the education thing, so therefore demand's down, therefore interrupting supply? We kind of talk about the issue of drug enforcement is interrupting supply, but also working on demand. So we'll get to the end of the year and see where we're at. We're not naive to think that substance abuse will just go away. It's something that will always be here for us, but those trends are kind of interesting to say the least, and we're not seeing some of the big seizures we saw last year. So I think we can't always just be like, oh, this is what success looks like, but this might be a new era. And then again, be also very cautious of what the next trend is, because we've seen it time and time again how it goes. So that's kind of an answer. We'll wait and see what the year-end numbers show us, and then kind of go from there on other trends.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, just hand it to Holt. He just wants to ask something. So yeah.
I just wanted to get a better picture. I was going to ask that, but I want to ask about the border, but more importantly, I want to ask about the information center, the real-time information
Yeah.
center. When this was released, there was talk of incorporating other camera systems, camera
Yep.
services, private camera systems,
Yeah.
marshal services. A, do you have any more cameras than you had in January? And B, are other agencies, federal agencies in particular, using this as well as
No,
SPD?
and those are just ours. If you look at some of our use agreements and how we do things, again, they're the same cameras we've always had. As far as expansion, I think you're saying, yeah, all that costs money is where we're at. And at a time where we're basically using what we have, there's incredible software systems out there that incorporate private cameras into this system. You can look around the country and see Omaha's doing it, other places. That's all stuff that we have to figure out down the road which direction we want to go. I kind of have a philosophy with some of these programs. I think everybody'd like to roll something out fully operational, 100%, 100 miles per hour. I kind of believe in getting a foothold in something new and then developing that foothold into what's best for our community. So I think you'll see in the upcoming years, but I think one of the greatest things we've seen so far, as I highlighted earlier, is using technology to arrest stolen vehicles with people in them and make arrests, as opposed to just retrieving a stolen vehicle later. It's made a difference. And so using technology and using those systems to be able to find those, so.
And maybe I missed it, but are you sharing this information with other agencies? Either
Sure.
Minnehaha or
So
federal?
yeah, so if we get something from either our camera system or our other means, like there's a system we share. So if we're looking for somebody who just robbed something and we think they're in Madison, they can use their technology to say, hey, that came through here. Or we've seen people who, again, when it's information that needs to be shared, I think the question that ultimately gets brought up about this is the ICE component or the federal law enforcement. And that's not anything that we're engaging in. It's actually pretty specific that certain technology can't be used for that. We're focused on our crimes, on how we want to serve our community with our technology that we have.
Piggyback off that, is part of that technology the license plate
Yep,
readers? Can
that's
you
part
talk
of it
about?
too.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have those deployed. We've kind of covered that in the previous brief, and a lot of it is the license plate readers in concert with some of our other camera systems allow us to effectively do real-time investigations really fast. We were able to either put something and say, hey, this isn't the issue that we thought it was, or go back and put something together within minutes that we wouldn't have been able to put together at all without some of the technology was there. And so even, an example is if we had a license plate or a description from a hit and run last night, be able to use that just because it's top of mind, because it was in my email this morning, develop a suspect card, develop where that's at, and then eventually be able to use all our information and systems in a real-time fashion to then find them and catch up with them and put that into the system.
This is for both the city and the county. Are you seeing any trends in terms of ages of both new arrests and repeat offenders?
Gal, do you have any jail demographic numbers? Yeah.
Jail, very generally, I didn't pull any demographic numbers. I mean, historically, what you see with crime stats and the people that get booked into jail is they tend to be fairly young and fairly male, which is consistent with what we see in the jail. But our overall jail population tends to maintain the male side of things, but it also tends to be a little bit older. We're talking about people mid-20s, late 20s, and that goes back, again, to these people that are continuing to commit crimes. We have so many programs, and honestly, our court system does a very good job of evaluating which people they feel comfortable that they can release back into the community that are going to show up for court and things like that. That tends to be the younger offenders. So then by the time someone has reoffended, come back in, get held in jail, go to prison, go to probation or whatever programming they get before they come back in again, they tend to be just a little bit older. But again, that's in very general terms. I didn't pull specific demographic information, but the people that we tend to hold in jail for a longer period of time also tend to be slightly older. Go ahead. Whoever, wherever.
No, it's okay. This is also a question for you. Somewhat of a general question, but with the new prison plan approved, do you know yet what's going to happen to the old prison, either physically?
I work for the county, so I don't know
Okay.
any of the plans that they're going to do with the old prison.
Okay.
I just don't know. Obviously, that'll be at least 5 years away before they can get that, the new facility built. But as far as what a definitive plan is for that the old hill portion of the prison, I don't know.
Okay.
It depends if it's an easy one or not.
Let me think. The pretrial services deal,
Yeah.
can you just help me understand that a little bit more? These are deputies, not probation officers
So
chasing people, or what?
These are, it's managed through the jail system. So they're county staff that comes in and they manage that program. So they're not out on the streets looking for folks. Basically, those numbers of the folks that may be enrolled in the pretrial program. So what'll happen is somebody comes in on a fresh arrest, the pretrial staff does a risk assessment on that person that's presented to the courts. It takes into account their charges, previous charges, criminal history, employment, family, all those kinds of things. They present that to the judge, who's able to review that and make a determination if, one, the judge feels this person could be released on bond or released on a personal recognizance bond. Then the judge makes the second determination as to whether or not they feel that pretrial would be appropriate for that person. So obviously, we're looking along the yes, that person is appropriate. Then before they're released or shortly after released, they stop into pretrial, get enrolled in the program, and then our staff continues to monitor that person's case. And maybe it's most appropriate for that person to participate in 24/7. So they'll participate in 24/7 and pretrial. Or maybe that person will need to provide UAs 3 times a week plus pretrial. It could be as simple as pretrial staff just needs to call that person and say, hey, don't forget, you got a court date on Wednesday. And those types of things. What happens for a lot of these folks is they're trying to get through life. They're trying to work. They're trying to manage kids. They're trying to get all of these things done. Court dates tend to change. A lot of our population doesn't really have a stable address, stable email address, stable phone number. They just don't have ways to get contacted, so they don't hear that court date's been changed. Lo and behold, next thing you know, they missed the court date. Now they run into an officer at whatever call. They're getting arrested for a fail to appear warrant, which causes their cycle to continue to spiral down. So if this can prevent that by getting them to go to court, which it's shown itself to be very effective, it really streamlines the process for everybody involved. These are our staff.
As opposed to UJS people?
They are not UJS employees. They are county employees. The county is paying for those. Correct. Now, there's a pilot running on the west side of the state where UJS is looking to establish that. But ours locally is county staff.
How long has this been going at this level?
It's been a couple years, I think. A couple years, probably a year of development, and then it's been going strong for a couple, 2-3 years.
For the county attorney, and then I have one more for the city. Am I correct? Has the county attorney gotten approval in next year's budget to add several new lawyers to the staff? And
Yes.
is that related to some of the repeat offenders? Go ahead.
Yeah, so with next year's county budget, my office, Public Defender's Office, and Public Advocate's Office all got new attorney positions added to our budgets. You're seeing a general increase in crime. You ask whether that's repeat offenders, and the answer is yes. It's also new offenders, but that's just due to the increase in caseload.
What's the total number, you know?
The total number of,
Total number of new additions.
my office got 2 deputy state's attorneys.
And this is for anybody from the county or city who wants to answer. The sheriff mentioned the governor's task force on rehabilitation, reducing recidivism. Has anybody from the county or city been asked to be on that task force yet?
I don't think the invites have gone out at all.
Yeah, there's been no communication yet from the Gov's office on that. I don't know if that's been formally formed yet. We're hoping and assuming we'll have a seat at the table, obviously because of the location of the prison being here, but it's still being formed, so. Any other questions?
Yeah. When crime's going up, you get blamed. You're like the quarterback, right? When the team loses, you get blamed. The team wins, you get the credit. When crime's going up, people blame the system. Crime's going down. Why? What do you think it really is at its core that the rates, the good news, I mean, it's good news. Is it something general societal? Is it coming off of COVID? Is it more cops on the street? Is it, what do you really think it is?
I mean, I'll give you my gospel according to Paul answer here, but, you know, there's 2 or 3 things. One is what I just mentioned at the closing, which is the interagency collaboration really is unique. So when we look at the way that these agencies work together, it really does help deter crime, because this is not a good place to be a criminal, and I think people know that. So, I think that deters crime. 2, I think we have seen the bounce back from just the little bit of lawlessness that came from the pandemic year. There was just, people were just losing their minds for a year or 2 there. And there was just kind of a lawless culture that came from 2020. And there's a little bit of recovery that's happening now from that. And 3, I like to think that some of the stuff we're doing, from community-based policing to mentorship to, you know, some of the messages that we're sending are working. And, you know, we're getting to kids earlier, and we're putting programs in place that are keeping, you know, kids from offending. And, you know, some of the programs that, you know, Jeff's even talking about are keeping people from reoffending, and Leaders of Tomorrow programs that are, you know, lowering recidivism rates are helping. So I like to think that some of those things are not just lip service, that they're actually working. Some of these programs that we stand up here and talk about are actually working. So that's what I think, Chief.
Yeah, I think well stated. Just on a collaboration piece, we look at multiple different things, and just here's a couple examples. 2021, we saw what was going on with violent crime. Violent Crime Unit was formed. Violent Crime Unit partners with the state's attorney, U.S. Attorney's Office, Warrant Task Force, Sioux Falls Drug Area Task Force. We're like, let's take an intelligence-based approach towards this. Nobody cares whose title or whose agency it is. How can we make sure we work together to get this done? But even street racing, right? We talk about, again, what does it look like? Collaboration, multiple agencies getting involved, including deputy state's attorneys riding around with cops so they can have a better feel of the situation. Understand who the players are, understand what cases need to be made, how they need to be made. And so it continues to be that direction, but again, we're very clear. I'll always say this, we are really good at what we do across the board from a law enforcement standpoint. Our results speak for themselves, but we would like less work, right? And that's what the comprehensive look at is, how do we get into rehabilitative services? How do we get into early intervention? How do we get into make sure that people are being managed and supervised when they're out, so that we can affect the entire system? Because great law enforcement, as the sheriff is always good at pointing out, if we do great work, that means there's a victim. And so the whole system has to be healthy, the whole system has to be supported. And again, the rehabilitative piece is the next piece on this prison discussion. What's the Rehabilitation Task Force going to do? Because if you've heard us, one thing that's consistent, where's the area for opportunity, right? It's with people who are on probation or parole who continue to commit crimes and continue to clog the system. That's the area for opportunity, so we need to be realistic and understand it's going to cost more money, it's going to cost more time, it's going to cost more effort, but what you get as a result potentially is I mean, a safer community that's comprehensive across the board with everybody pitching in on it. So,
Sorry.
sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I also think that you have a lot of communication and accountability within the different agencies. I think he could tell you there have been times where I've called him, yelled at him because disappointed with certain outcomes, and it's a two-way street. So being able to have those conversations and know that we can expect a lot of each other, and when we don't live up to that, because again, there are going to be times when my office makes mistakes in the future. I know that there's going to be times where I'm dissatisfied with something. We're going to talk through that. Same with the sheriff's office. And so when you look at these partnerships where we're coordinating that response, that's important. We're accountable to each other because ultimately that benefits the community. When we are talking about rehabilitation and this prison, everything that goes with that, again, with those conversations we have to have, well, what does accountability look like? If we just take another $10 million from the state legislature and say, okay, we're just going to pump this into these rehabilitation programs, hope things get better, that's not going to accomplish the goal. We need to have conversations with them and say, how are we accountable with this? Because all that taxpayer money, whether it's property tax, sales tax, it's coming from taxpayers. So we have to be accountable with that. We have to make sure that the programs we're supporting are effective, and then ultimately we're going to keep seeing good results. But I think it's the communication, the accountability, and so that's why I'm happy to be here.
Mayor, 13 months ago, we were in here and you had a press conference talking about nuisance behavior downtown, minority of the homeless population, let's stop panhandling, et cetera, et cetera. Sort of falls under this conversation, I guess, with all the stuff that's been done around that. We're about a year later. How do you feel that problem has been addressed in your eyes?
It's going really well. In fact, at some point, I'm guessing we'll probably have an update on that because things have improved dramatically. And just anecdotally, I'll just share one story with you. I ran into a lady recently, a wealth manager downtown, who said, Paul, last summer I would go for a walk every day downtown, and I stopped going on my walks over my lunch because I literally did not feel comfortable walking around downtown anymore over my lunch hour. And she said, whatever you guys have been doing, it's working because I'm back going on my walks again downtown. So we've just made 2 degrees of change in a whole lot of areas that are making people comfortable to be out and about in our downtown again. And it was not that it was terrible, but small changes have cleaned some things up a little bit. And so I think we're in a really great spot, and down the road we'll probably have an update on that, some of those small tweaks that have been made that are working.
One more question from Ray.
One more, I promise. So you mentioned early intervention. You've talked about mentoring. We're talking about prison rehabilitation, recidivism reduction. Where does the conversation need to start with mentoring, with early intervention with elementary kids, pre-K? Is the prison the place? Can that be brought up? I mean, where does that conversation need to start statewide?
Well, I mean, it goes back to mentoring overall, but the reason I hope we're well represented on the mentoring task force or the rehabilitation task force is I think the number one opportunity to reduce crime in this community, if you ask me what's one thing, the one thing we could do is to get a mentoring program behind the walls that gets to these guys 12 to 24 months before they get out, gets them connected with someone so that when they get out, they have a support system that keeps them from reoffending. Because all these guys that talked about reoffending, I mean, that's our number one issue is reoffenders. Because these men get out and they don't have a support system, they don't have the skills, they don't have the training, they don't have anything, and we expect them just to all of a sudden become choir boys, and it just doesn't work. So we need a mentoring program behind the walls that connects these guys with other guys, that gets them ready to be released so that when they get out, a guy's walking alongside them, helping them get a driver's license, get a job, find a place to live, just doing life with them so that they don't reoffend. That is the number one thing, in my opinion, that would lower the recidivism rates in this community. It's not some gee whiz government program that we can do. It's one-on-one relationships like that.
This is not the recidivism rate, parole, mentoring,
Those programs have been harder and harder to get done right now up there. There's been staffing challenges, as you know. There's been turnover issues. So the hope is it's been a chicken or egg discussion. That's why, to the sheriff's point, it's so great that we got the facility, because now that we got the facility, hopefully with that, problem solved, now we can focus on, let's turn our eyes towards the programming. So thank you for being here today. We will have one more crime briefing next spring under the TenHaken administration, and then it's your problem, brother. So thank you. Appreciate it.